What is all of this junk?
Hey guys, Dante here and welcome back to my channel, The Burger's Art. And welcome to a very special episode. You see, this marks the return of The Artist's Eye, where we try to view the world a little differently. Now, The Artist's Eye was originally the very first segment I tried to create on this channel. It was where I would take everyday objects and turn them into pieces of artwork. I would let the object guide me into something creative, a drawing, a sculpture, etc. Now, when I was young, this is primarily what I did. Mainly because I didn't have the funds or knowledge to get my hands on or even know how to use things like Dremels and drills and really powerful glue that my parents wouldn't let me touch. So when I wanted to make something three-dimensional, I often just took some store-bought children's safe glue and just started putting stuff together and then painting them and seeing what came out of it. And it's a really good process if you just want to, go with the flow, taking a bunch of objects that catch your attention and let them guide you. However, it's not the best thing to do when you're trying to create a pre-existing concept. The main problem with using found objects, or kit bashing as some people call it, is you can sometimes lead away from the original design. You'll make a spaceship and all you have is a bunch of tin cans. That's perfect. Oh wait, but the tin cans are kind of awkward in size. I guess it's okay if the engines are bigger than originally thought about. Oh, I want to make the windshield round. But I don't have a round piece of plastic. I have an oval piece of plastic, and so on and so forth. You kind of begin to end up with more and more degrees of separation from the original design. But now, I'm a big boy, and I can afford all the dangerous tools I couldn't use when I was little, so I could basically make whatever I want from scratch. But sometimes it's more fun to use a few found objects, especially if those found objects help you add more detail you didn't think about before. So, with that little ramble out the way, today I am making this. So this is a laser rifle or machine gun for the short film Clones versus Drones. Now, speaking of the project, where do we get started? Well, we get started with what I have right here. So, when he sent me the image of this original draft, I instantly thought of this old water gun. Now, I bought this water gun at a thrift store, or rather what was left of it, for the purpose of using it for arts and craft. And it sat in my closet for heaven knows how many years. And the moment I saw his sketch, I instantly thought of this and pulled it out. Now luckily for me, I don't have to do a one-to-one replica of his drawing, but rather something that evokes the sense of it. So with this pulled out of the closet, I have the big old kind of drill or screw top in the back that looks like the actual drawing. I have a long, narrow barrel, and I have a good handle to work with. This handle has already been altered. I've added some foam to it, but we'll get to that in a minute. So now that I had this piece, I said, you know what? Let's mix this up. Let's mix it with a little bit of found objects and a little bit of art supplies. What are the found objects, you say? Well, as I mentioned, we have the water gun and its individual pieces. I have this old broken Black & Decker shell. I originally cut the handle off for something else a while back, and for this project I've cut off either ends so that it will be able to fit in the groove of the piece right here. I got your standard ping pong balls, which are great for big round objects. I got some old frisbees. I bought a bunch of frisbees from the thrift store. These will be used for the round disc that go down the length of the barrel. And some other miscellaneous pieces like toys like this. These are really cheap children's like puzzle toys. I had some broken plastic hangers, and yes, even this weird cardboard box. It turns out that a co-worker of mine was eating crackers one day, and I was thinking at that moment, man, I really need to find something that will fit the square shape of the original drawing, and wouldn't you know it, he had this box, and I said, hey, let me get that box real quick. And I used this as a basic stencil. It basically saved me from doing measurements to get the proportions just right. Lastly, of course, we have our working tools, which are various types of glues I used. You like that? My handy dandy Dremel, a basic hand saw, and more safe glue, more kid safe glue if you would. And yes, there was a lot of manual labor using this saw to cut a lot of this stuff. going up the ladder from just store-bought material. You could go to any 99-cent store and buy a lot of this cheap junk, cheap toys, cheap frisbees, whatever. Aside from this, the next level up was more industrial stuff. So I luckily had some wooden dowels or wooden sticks on hand. I had this 1 inch or so, 1 inch PVC, which happened to fit perfectly with the wooden sticks. And thanks to a friend of mine who's in construction and just does a number of mechanical work, I got this plastic tubing. This is the kind of tubing used to feed wires through a larger device. In fact, it's already pre-cut down the length. So all of this was really cheap, or in that case, handed to me freely. But now you need to go a little bit higher than all this. You have all your pre-made material, but you need to still kind of wrap it together. What brings it together? So that's when you go to the next step, which is actually going to an art store and spending a bit more money. I have here a bag of miscellaneous wooden shapes. I bought this from Michael's Art and Crafts. It is exactly as I said, just random wooden shapes that could be used for any kind of arts and crafts. I have this mesh, which is used more for knitting and sewing, which I actually used to put some cool ventilation grates on the inside of the drill. You have your standard super thin, really child safe craft foam. This is like barely a few millimeters, a centimeter or so. And then you have the creme de la creme cosplay grade EVA foam. I bought this some time ago and it's been itching to use it. Now most cosplayers will do this entire project from scratch using this material. I lack that kind of skill, and also I kind of want to see where the material would take me. All of the individual pieces with their details and the little grates and everything. So this is used more for broad shaped. In fact, I used this once I had a stencil and I combined the two and made the box needed for kind of the energy source, if you would, the electrical box that goes on the barrel. It kind of came out looking like this. So that worked out great for me. But this stuff, it cuts like butter. Worth the money, and with more practice, you could probably do this entire project just using these. However, the reason I stuck with these pre-made objects is because it's hard plastic. All of it interlocked beautifully. In fact, once I took apart this water gun, once I clean cut the side of this, I turned it over and realized there was a big indent ring, a small indent ring, and with a little bit of work getting all the little bits and bobs out the front half, it interlocked as if it was made for it. And that told me that I was on the right track. Sometimes you find pieces that just work well. I mean, heck, this little blue screw right here, this was originally part of the water gun, but then I realized the diameter of the hole here was the same diameter as this hard plastic hanger. So everything was locking into place piece by piece. And you know, it won't always work that well, it won't always work that way, but when it does, oh, so much fun. So now we have all the individual pieces. Let's start assembling them and see where it takes us, shall we?
Alright, so let's start off by assembling the main core of the gun, which is of course the water gun center, along with the general shape of the this power drill shell. For this, I just used basic epoxy, 2-part epoxy, and just a reminder to everyone, when using any kind of glue, epoxy glue, or barge cement, you want to do it in a well-ventilated area. You know, open the windows, turn the fan on, and be safe. Always be safe with this stuff. So I went ahead and just glued all the little connecting points, and then just to make sure it all fit nice and tight, I just took whatever nice long screws I had on hand and decided to, you know, close up the frame just like it should be. After that, I went ahead and glued on the antenna, and then with some contact cement, I made both this foam box, which overlaps over a slit in the barrel, and that slit is going to be where we install it, the second handle, and the extended well, the extended barrel of the gun as well, which as you can see in this video, has a small piece of wood in it with a even smaller piece of metal in it. And once I feed it through the plastic water gun barrel, everything should interlock. So both handles and the main frame are all now held together nice and tight. And you can also see that I've added a slip of foam over the exposed shell of the drill to, you know, add more plating and just cover all the small details up. Next, I took one of the kid plastic rings and I wrapped thin strips of EVA foam. This is the more crafty foam. And I wanted to kind of get like a Tesla coil kind of mechanical donut, if that makes sense. And once again, using this 2-part cement, the way you use this barge cement or contact cement is that you would coat both sides of your object and let the cement essentially dry until it loses almost all of its tack. And then you just push it together. Next step are the metal rings. Oh. Okay, so we're reaching the final stretch here. I've gone ahead and added some more EVA foam between the kind of Tesla coil and the first disc. A little bit right here as well on the other side, just to help this handle stay in place. And added some EVA foam to connect all these cool little sci-fi details. So what happens now is that I will take these pieces, which have been carefully measured, which means I'll probably have to cut them twice anyway. And I will use contact cement to glue one on, slide the next ring on, glue that on, slide the next ring, and then when I get to the end, with my final measurement, I'm then going to cut off any excess. After that, it's a matter of adding the final details regarding the handle and these wires. There's going to be some wires that go from the handle onto the power box, and I'm going to fill up this handle with some expandable foam to really lock in certain pieces, because this is put in with a metal pole. This has a metal, actually a nail. This has a nail going through it. This has a pole going through it. And with the expandable foam, it will also give it just a little bit more weight. And I think it will just kind of add to the durability of the entire piece. So yeah, just gonna add these pieces on, and we're almost there, folks. At least with the construction part. Then comes the painting. So with everything glued together, here is our unpainted, finished laser gun. Well, it's not really a laser gun, but I'm calling it that for now. And yeah, this came together very, very well. So a few basic details, meaning how did I add detail to it? So I used some of the really thin EVA foam to put little metal plates on it. This also helps cover any seams or any paint, or in this case, any areas with a larger EVA foam, the thicker version. Didn't quite seam together very well. So this was wrapped around individually, 1, 2, and 3, but I couldn't get the seams to line up well. So just add some of that black EVA foam. As I mentioned before, I did fill the handle a little bit with expandable foam. You gotta be careful. If you put too much in it, there's not enough air circulation, so it doesn't actually expand. It stays liquid inside. A nice little trick is to spritz just a very little bit of water, because moisture makes the expandable foam really take off. I actually put a bit of it inside this ping pong ball, so it's not, you know, if you hit it hard enough, it will condense, but at least it's harder, has a bit of a weight to it. And I added more detailing with little bits of EVA foam on this piece here, to cover up the gaps in between the Black & Decker and the plastic toy. And if you want to add some cool rivets, some really easy rivets, you could use these. These are, let me see if I can find the name of it. Oh yes, these are basically bronze fasteners. They're like little pins. You push it in and then you split it. Use it mainly for paper. You could get these at Staples, which is like the only place you can find them nowadays. And they're great because they're basically just like tacks. They poke right through the foam. And the only downside is that they have a basic size. This is the basic size of these kind of fasteners. So you don't really have the range you would have with, let's say, googly eyes. You could buy a whole pack of those, but the good news is you shake it, and unlike googly eyes, it don't make no noise. So let's flip this right over real quick. So I have the various tubing going in asymmetrically all around. I even added a little more detailing. I figured rather than have this long piece dangle in all places, I'd just put a little foam around it, and I just glued that in with some hot glue gun. Since it's on the underside, I didn't care about it being noticed by the foam. It won't, not noticed by the eye. That is, hot glue gun will melt into the foam. So since it's on the underside, no need for that contact cement. And just push the nail straight through it for more detailing. Speaking of which, these holes here, I would be putting nuts or bolts into those once I've primed everything. Once everything's been primed, most likely I'll be using peel coat to cover the entire thing, since peel coat is what you should use on EVA foam. If you use a basic spray paint primer, it could eat through it. So the whole thing's going to be completely peel coated. Then I'll put the screws in. That way I don't have to paint them silver. Keep that detail for later. And the connections of the foam onto the plastic handle and this obviously exposed handle, these will also be covered up in other detail, like some hand grip, like some cloth or some kind of grip tape as per instructions from the client. And yeah, this is looking really good. I am so happy with this. It holds together well. You can shake it around. There's a good weight to it. The only places I would want to be careful with are these. These were hot glued in, but if you yank them hard, they could rip out. But then again, no one's going to be doing that. And yeah, next step, everyone, is the painting. So even with a design sketch, even with going back and forth between myself and the client, Crosby, we reached a point where we realized some things should be changed, even from the stage we're at now, the near end stage of the design process. So before we started painting, we realized certain things had to go. One of which was, sadly, the retro sci-fi disc that were on the barrel. See, these are, once again, plastic cut from Frisbees, and I heated a hole right through the center. And maybe it's the way the hole was heated, maybe it's just the plastic itself without the outer rim of the Frisbee, but this began to warp. Like, it's just wobbly. And we realized, like, that didn't really look cool. So we had different options. Crosby suggested we use foam, EVA foam for the disc, which was an idea I had. But the issue with that is, yes, you could get probably a perfect cut, but then I was afraid that would begin to warp as well and get easily damaged if it drops. So we decided to go ahead and take off the tip.
I take my little machine. I take your little thing, see? I put it into this little hole here and nip the tip.
Crosby said, you know what, let's streamline it. Let's really condense this to a much more of a submachine gun as opposed to a long rifle. So we discussed what was the best way to go forward, how to go forward with what was already there, since the inner workings were a solid pole going through the entire frame. So we went ahead, we snipped the tip, and we also removed the handle guard, which was this piece I made. I really liked it. I was really happy the way I was able to switch the this base piece, which was originally connecting the guard and the handle. I switched it around, but we decided, you know what, we'll cut it off, and I made sure to cut it off as clean as possible because you never know, I could probably use this in a future project. And we went ahead and snubbed the nose off like a sawed-off shotgun, and now we have this guy. It is smaller, it is more condensed, but I think that kind of works. So I think, you know what, the cool sci-fi discs were really nice if we were working for a more longer, sleek barrel. Maybe we're not a handle like this, but like a base handle, like an actual like rifle. So yeah, I think in the long run, his idea to streamline it, if that makes sense, is a lot better. Alright, so we start with some white, some yellow, and some brown to get this nice beige kind of tone going on. This more pastel organic tone. Then I coat the whole thing in that more or less. Then I just get some brown and black, and I just get really messy in all the areas where dirt would accumulate. So we're talking about the vents,
the joints where certain pieces meet, right beneath curving points like this. You know, let it fill into the gaps of the screws and everything. Speaking of which, hit all of these little screw holes before I put the screws in. That way it looks like it's rust building up beneath it. So this is all right now freehand with the airbrush. Just kind of thinking to myself, where do I see grime build up? Where do you really, you don't really think about it until you have to think about it. Where on my car? Where on my keyboard? Think of a keyboard. Oh, right between the keys, between the mouse you use. If you ever use one of those old-fashioned mouse with the metal ball in it, yeah, that's where all the gook builds up. So a lot of this is freehand airbrush, like I said, but I will go in with a paintbrush and really make some small details pop out. Maybe put some silver on this. And I'm gonna try just hitting this with pure silver from the airbrush and see how that works out. Maybe a little bit on the nose. But yeah, this general like beige, like I said, pastel color, that's what we're trying to aim for. And I'm trying to make it look a little dirty, like it's been used up. And then maybe I'll do some decals on it later. But yeah, it's coming out pretty well so far. Now I gotta get inside because it's starting to rain.
And now, a few days later, two major things have happened. One, I've changed from an orange shirt with black lettering to a black shirt with orange lettering. And two, bam baby, we have our completed project. So, to wrap everything up, quite literally, I used some deep reddish, royal red. If you have royal blue, I guess it's royal red, I don't know. I used some rags and some cloths I had to wrap up the handlebars, which was one of the main details the commissioner wanted. And it kind of, actually no, not kind of, it does work very well with the colors we have already, especially since I've also added some full alien writing on the side of it. And it holds together very well. There's a bit of a wiggle concerning the inside, but not enough where it's going to fall upon you. You shake this sucker, it holds out very well, holds together, and it's gonna do its job. And once again, this whole thing is made primarily out of recycled material with a little bit of arts and crafty pieces, of course. But me holding it isn't gonna do it justice. So let's cut to that beautiful bean footage. Go for it. Using the silver, I also did some light dry brushing along the pipes. I hand painted with a brush all the piping to give it a little bit of silver tints here and there. And anywhere where I allowed the glue gun to kind of seep out, like I tried very hard to keep this clean, but where I knew the glue gun or any kind of glue was going to seep out, I went ahead and painted over that glue with silver, so it actually looks more like welded metal, like pieces of welded metal, which is a nice little trick. Rule of thumb when doing any kind of armor or cosplay or props, if you screw up, make it battle damage. It'll make it a lot easier. And as I mentioned, right there in the side, you can see the handwritten. I use just a Copic marker to handwrite the alien random, I don't know, numbers, letters, for a good time, call someone, I don't know what they are. And that's that, guys. I want to thank you for joining me on this video, in this little journey, because this was a prop I was very, very, very happy to work on. We went back and forth with a few concepts, as mentioned earlier. The nose was too long at one point, so we cut that back, and etc. and etc. But the final product is something that I'm very, very proud of. And it's meant to show that, yes, you do need a bit of knowledge when it comes to certain materials. If you're not used to using contact cement, if you're not used to using an airbrush, that's okay. It's fine. But I want to show you what you can accomplish with just everyday objects. Wooden pieces, broken toys. Go to a thrift store, grab a bunch of stuff, and just start hammering things together. And once again, it helps that this wasn't a one-to-one project from sketch to final. There's a bit of leeway, which helped a lot as well. And that's the whole point of this project, or rather, that's the whole point of this video, The Artist's Eye, was to show you that you don't always have to go one-to-one to your original design, because sometimes what you have on hand helps to guide you into a more unique design, into something a bit more interesting. So, don't be afraid to experiment. That's the whole point of art.
So once again, guys, thank you for joining me. As always, I am Dante. Like, favorite, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Before I let you go, once again, check out the video, the soon-to-be short film, Clones versus Drones, and I'll see you in the future. Later.
If you liked this video, be sure to check out my other works on my YouTube channel, and also be sure to follow me on these social media websites, linked in the description down below.